We in the healthcare a profession have benefited a lot from technology over the years, but even more so in recent times. We have seen a rapid movement from relying solely on our clinical abilities and just our deductions and simple apprenticeship to relying more and more on tech to improve our care for our patients. I think the digital patient will help us in various ways. In the clinic setting, we need, I see it as an opportunity for us to bring together as much of the information as we may on a particular patient and individualize it. So today we rely very much on group studies and we make statements that would apply to a large group, to a person. So, for instance, if you ask someone, if they ask, what's the risk that I might die, for instance, from a heart operation, or that I may have a stroke, the chances are that you will get a figure that comes out of a study that involved thousands of people that's not necessarily applicable to you in particular. It's all extrapolated. But it is possible that using a digital model, we should be able to refine that answer in a way that brings in all the various factors that relate to that particular patient, such that you get a more precise evaluation of your health status. The other area that it would help us a lot is with planning interventions. Today, we have moved a little bit from going in and seeing and doing what we find to being a little bit more prepared using the images that we have. But one thinks that with the right digital model, you should be able to actually do a dry run of a procedure before you actually go in. And it will be helpful for training. It will also be helpful even for experienced guys to prepare themselves for what might be a difficult operation. The third area that I think it might help in its translation would be in trials. At the moment, we rely heavily on various phases of trials of drugs and techniques to bring them into being. But at some stage, we put it out to a large population of subjects. And it's possible that before we do that, we may use a digital model to try out these interventions. The digital model allows us to alter as many of the factors at play as we may wish. So we can create different permutations and combinations of challenges that may be associated with a particular condition and see what effect that the intervention is planned may hold. Now, obviously, all this might sound like may sound like a pie in the sky, but that's what we as clinicians are looking to see, and one is confident that we will see that day. I suppose we haven't really. We are on the journey, so we are adopting various aspects of what will ultimately be part of the digital patient as we go along. The difficulty is that we're not doing it quickly enough, and perhaps we are still we don't have a sufficient we haven't built it to a point where it actually takes the pride of place increasingly. We need to do more, and I think that the uptake will improve as the products improve. The products need to be made user friendly. In the first instance, they need clinical input to actually adapt the concept to what a clinician might find useful. In other words, answering the right questions. And for that, I think we would need to try it out in clinical settings with the actual people using it. We would need to then put these new techniques through our systems of our check systems. And some of that would involve trials. We will have to accumulate numbers. We need to prove that it's actually useful over and above what we currently do. We need to prove that it's reproducible. We need to see that the benefits are also cost effective. And I think that as we cross these important um, um, obstacles to uptake, with everyone crossed, you get an increase in the numbers of people who would want to use it. Clinicians have oftentimes been accused of not being keen on new things. But I suppose it's really that if they had a sufficient input into development of new tools, they'll be the first ones to use it. It can be a little bit difficult if you're faced with a tool that you feel is totally, out of sync with what you do, what you think you do well. It can be difficult to simply acquire it, and especially if it's at cost. So I think those are some of the challenges that I think we face to uptake, but they are not insurmountable by any sort of measure. Well, again, I think the society, I think we're changing all the time. Um, it's probably the first thing to mention is that most patients actually appreciate the fact that the help and the treatment they get today is because of the knowledge that has been acquired from the people who have gone before them and are oftentimes quite willing to contribute their experience to that body of knowledge that would improve the care for them and for someone else in future. So I think that despite all the concerns about confidentiality, most people are actually pro providing the information for healthcare because they appreciate its value. It's not for sales, this is actually for healthcare. So I don't think we're going to face a huge challenge from there. I think in recent years there's been a lot of emphasis on data protection and confidentiality generally, both for government organizations, for the private sector, and for patients. So I think we're all a bit more aware now than we were only but a few years ago. And all that would actually help with our design of systems and also with the uptake of those systems. So although the challenges will always be there, I think again that with the right product we will overcome all those. A lot of hospitals are now, over the years, have increasingly acquired digital data on patients. So, like this institution, you've got programs like CDR, which actually holds huge amount of personal data on people. Practically every time these days you go to GP practice, your data is held in some system, and you come into hospital, practically every aspect of your care is captured in a digital manner somewhere. Some coordinated, some not coordinated. So I think we're already pretty much in the era of all that data being held anyway, and that can only help rather than take away. There are restrictions to getting that information. Um, the plan, there was an ambitious plan you may be aware of, the Spine project in the UK, where the hope was that everybody's data will be held, or basic data will be held in a centralized database, such that if you lived in Devon and had a difficulty in Aberdeen, we should be able to go on computer and get all your information. But for some reason, that project has not really seen the light of day. So there are challenges with of visibility of data beyond the organizations that actually hold them. There is some degree of data transfer between NHS hospitals, like images are now increasingly transferred between hospitals, and this has only been in in the last maybe 2, 3 years. It wasn't the case a long time before that. But we still do not have visibility of each other's databases as we should. So, for instance, I don't have visibility of data for patients held in Birmingham Heartlands Hospital. I don't even have visibility of patients held in Chase Farm Hospital, which is up the road. I don't have visibility of data held in any of the GP practices. We don't have any of that. All that we have is just the letters that they actually send into the hospital. That's correct. I mean, I suppose in hindsight, or the original plan, which was very ambitious to have everybody's data, on the spine. I'm not a specialist in this particular field, so I'm not going to go down it too heavily. But there were issues about confidentiality at the time, which a lot of people worried about. But it is possible that if such a system was optional, then those who genuinely do want their data being available to be seen elsewhere, would be able to provide it. There's always a concern, though, that our health information is personal to us, and the real challenge is how you keep that data within the health system without it actually leaking out to the press or leaking out to to persons whom you don't want to see that data. And I think that's the biggest challenge with ready availability of personal information. They could do with engaging more than they are at the moment. I'm not entirely sure why they haven't engaged as much as they have up till now. There are tools being produced all the time, but you kind of wish there were more. We could move faster than we are. So, for instance, the sort of avatar which you describe is not beyond the current rate that that is produced. Even if you wanted to create an avatar for a group of patients, it's like a longitudinal study that takes 20, 30 odd years. You've got to start to acquire the data for that small group, so that the trial for what we actually describe now will probably not be ready for another 10 years, 15 years, assuming if we started today. So there is room for actually start doing something. And as I mentioned earlier on, clinicians have got tools that they rely on. And one of it is the evidence, the scientific evidence, the trials or whatever, the data. Without it, it's very difficult to effect a change in a clinician's mindset. And if we're going to achieve that, we do need to start now to try out some of those tools. DISCIPULUS is doing very well. I mean, it's actually working on this project, which is excellent. It's bringing people together with an interest. It's making them think. And, all that thought process is important in creating this. It sounds like early days, but I'm pretty sure that we will in future look back with delight at what it has contributed to this very important subject. So it is certainly the right path. It's doing the right thing. It is wonderful because, as I said earlier on, many things we do today that only but a few years earlier we never imagined we could do them. We have, if you, for instance, look at the role of robotics in surgery, when it all started, most, oh God, I don't want any robot touching me. I want a real human being who can feel and touch and, all that. But, the tech has been refined to a point where, it actually is doing great work. Okay, there's still a way to travel. It's still gaining ground. But all these things are benefiting people. Even if not everybody, there's always a subset of people who stand to benefit. And we have the tools to make that happen. We need to do more of this. We need to move a little bit quicker than we are. with this project, in my view, um, it is concerning that despite the level of tech we have available today, we're still sort of at an infant. This project still at its infancy, and perhaps we need a bigger body of enthusiasts, both from the engineering and healthcare background, to actually, and probably government, to actually get this going. I think that's achievable, um, but in spite of my optimism, I think it will take a while. It will take a while. I think if we are able to actually get it off the ground, um, in what just get it started, it would make a real difference. Um, 10 years ago, I was in San Jose, and at the time they were having discussions about putting people's using the mobile telephone as a platform for people's lives. And at the time, it all sounded really, really weird, and you couldn't see it, but they could see it. And the life we lead today, where everybody's life is sort of caught on we all our telephone is a second us, was seen very clearly in the minds of those guys at the turn of the millennium. And I think that that's the way I see this. That if we started, you never know. You never know.